I'm Patrick Daly and welcome to Interlinks. Interlinks is a programme about globalisation and the effects it has had on Ireland and other countries around the world over the last 50 years or so. In each programme we interview a person from another country or with strong connections to another country to get their unique perspective on globalisation as it has affected them, their country and its relationship with the wider world. There's a little bit of history, a dash of economics, a sprinkling of business and an overlay of personal experience both from me and from my interviewees from around the world. In today's programme we're going to the Americas, to a Spanish-speaking country, a country with a population of over 49 million people, an economy with a GDP of over $300 billion in nominal terms and some $700 billion in purchasing power parity, which is one of the largest in Latin America and is now expanding at a rate of, I think, perhaps in excess of 3% per annum. The country we are visiting is Colombia, a country more than 13 times the size of the island of Ireland, covering an area in excess of 1 million square kilometres. Within this massive area, Colombia encompasses a huge variety of climates, landscapes and people, from the hot and humid Caribbean coast to the high peaks and cool valleys of the Andes Mountains, the steaming Amazon jungles and its wild Pacific coastline. It's a country with the second highest biodiversity ranking in the world, with over 56,000 registered species. Happily, Colombia is now a country with a more hopeful and promising future than at any time over the last 40 or 50 years, due to its peace progress, which continues to progress and consolidate as its economy develops and expands in tandem. Today we will be talking with Ambassador of Colombia to Ireland, Ambassador Patricia Cortés Ortiz, who's here with us in the studio today. Welcome, Ambassador Cortés, and thank you very much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you so much for this invitation to Interlinks. The program is really a big honor for me to be here and a great opportunity as well to talk about Colombia and all the interests and opportunities.
You're very welcome. We're delighted to have you here. Yes, could you tell us, just situate Colombia for us geographically with respect to Europe? Where exactly is Colombia?
Yeah, Colombia is in the northwest corner of South America. Mm-hmm. It's as I guess you did a very good description of what Colombia is, a very large country. Actually, we are the fourth largest country in Latin America. And our regions are basically, of course, we border both the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And the Atlantic is more of the Caribbean.
Unique in South America. In
exactly.
regard, yeah.
It's the only country in South America that has, we border both oceans. And we have, in terms of regions, we have the Amazon region. We have the plains, which is called Los Llanos in Colombia. There is another huge region. The Andes, in which most of the largest cities in Colombia are located. Mm-hmm. And I think that shows as well why we are the second most biodiverse country in the world. It's very, very biodiverse. Mm-hmm. And geographically, it depends a lot on the mountains, of course, on the range mountains that are there. And also that gives a lot of contribution for tourism. Is very splendid in terms of the diversity and culture and geographic. And I just want to take this opportunity to mention as well, in terms not geographically, but in Colombia, that we are a very strong democracy. This year we are celebrating the 200 years of our existence as republic. Mm-hmm. Colombia is a centralized government, but also with full independent powers, with check and balances that it's been working. Is one of the strongest democracies in Latin America. As Brilliant. Well, yeah.
And distance from Europe and journey time, and what's the most practical way to get to Colombia for business people, tourists and so on?
Yes, I think for business people, the way to connect, in particular from Ireland, is either through Madrid or Barcelona or London. London could be the fastest. From London is 11 hours flight. From Madrid is around 10 hours flight. We also have connections from Frankfurt, from Amsterdam, and also another possibility, it's a connection through the States. Because, there is a good connection here between Ireland and, for example, New York and other cities, and we have very, very strong connections with the U.S. That is our largest market. Excellent. Yes, so...
And then I mentioned the size of the population and the area of the country. What other vital statistics of Colombia would you mention? Would you make stand out?
Yeah, Colombia has transformed in the last 20 years in all possible terms, in terms of the economics and on the, of course, social indicators, which is very, very, very important as well in terms of security. As vital statistics, for example, our life expectancy is an average 71 years for men and 28 for women. And we have a health coverage, in particular in the main cities of nearly 95%. In rural areas is less. It's like 55-something%. And then, but as well in terms of social indicators, we have moved a lot in terms of fighting poverty, for example. We have, at this moment, in the last 10 years, we decreased to 26%, let's say.
And the middle classes have expanded, is that
exactly,
right?
as
Maybe
well.
doubled in 20 years?
Yes, doubled in 20 years. And as well, as long as we move in the middle class, it's also all the realities of the middle cities, mid-sized cities in Colombia, because it's not only the capital, there is Bogota, it's 10 million, but also at least 5 or 6 major cities with an important number of population in which as well the middle class has improved a lot. And also, let's say, in education, we have, of course, coverage. Basic elementary school is free in Colombia. We have, of course, until 3rd and 4th level education.
And it has always been high quality in Colombia, even through all the difficult times.
Yes. I think one of the sectors that have been really, really solid in Colombia is, of course, education. And we have it taken into account the accreditation, for example, in programs of 3rd, even 4th level education. And it's been, as you mentioned, Colombia, we have faced so many challenges, but key things has been, first of all, our institution, and also that we have been very solid in terms of our macroeconomic policy. And when you have a stable economy, it's easier, of course, to get the investment in terms of education and all the public services that we want. I forgot to mention, we have worked a lot. Our inflation rate is less than 5%, and as well, in terms of unemployment now it's less than 2 digits, is around 9% at this moment.
I think it's important to mention also because, like Ireland in the past, Colombia had an association with violence and conflict, but it's important to mention that Colombia today is a safe country to visit, whether you're a business person or whether you're a tourist. Isn't that the case?
Yes, exactly. Part of the transformation is as well the tourism, for example. In the years when we face the threat of the narcos, this type of narco cartels that are defeated now, that don't exist, like the Pablo Escobar era, we had Medellin was like 76 homicide rate on 100,000 per inhabitants, which is huge. Now we are in 26, 25, really average on Latin America. Yeah. Last year we received nearly 6 million tourism, and like 20 years ago we received not even 500,000. So that says a lot in terms, more, yeah. And even the air traffic, for example, in 2018, the traffic in Colombia was about 35 million, so that's huge. And internally it's like 23 million, and that's one investment from Ireland, actually, that is the 3rd largest airline. I think it's really taking advantage of that, which we are so glad that
I think it's been set up by a company called Irelandia.
Which is the kind of the same model of Ryanair.
Yeah, exactly. So. And so what's the current state of play with the peace process? I know through 2017, 2018, there was a referendum, then there was an election, and then there was a kind of a renegotiation. So where are you now with the peace process? Yes,
the peace process is now, we are implementing the peace process. The peace process was, actually last week was the 3rd year of the signing of the peace process. It's not really being negotiated. It was, when it took to referendum, they won the no option, but then through Congress it was approved, and as well by Colombian Constitutional Court. So this current government, what it has done is basically been implementing the peace agreement, but of course with a very strong focus on legality. Why legality? Because it's very clear that all what is established in the peace process will be for those who will be part of the reintegration process and through the system. But those who will not follow what it says, they will be treated actually as criminals. So the justice part is working, which is a special jurisdiction for peace. The political participation of FARC is working. We are focusing a lot in the 170 municipalities that are most affected by violence. And in those 170 municipalities, I may say is the strongest focus on all the projects from rural transformation and as well from productive projects. And so far, nearly 11,000 of former FARC members are still, even there was a poll in which they say like 70%, they feel like it's moving in the right direction. Of course, we still have many challenges, but we expect to be a process to be implemented in 12, 15 years, and we are in second year, third year perhaps.
These things take a long time, as we know well from our process in Northern Ireland.
Yes. So as you say, it's a huge transformation that of course matters in terms of the economic opportunities, in particular tourism, for example.
And how long have we had a Colombian embassy here in Dublin? And what are the principal objectives for you during your time here as ambassador?
Yeah, we have the Colombian embassy since August. We are actually arrived to open the embassy.
That's August 2000.
Oh, it was 2018. Yes, thank you. And this was a decision as well that it was accompanied by Ireland also opened an embassy in Bogota in January this year. And I think priorities, of course, I think Ireland and Colombia, we are really, partners. We share values of democracy and human rights. We share many of our interests in terms of this political cooperation, but as well, I think it's basically economic opportunities. Colombia is a huge market. We have already a free trade agreement. It's at the part of Colombia and the European Union. A large consumer population. And we have important investment from Ireland. Actually, the Small Feed Kappa has one of the strongest operation in Colombia with 5,000 actually employees. The one that I mentioned on Viva Air. There are movement because this government is moving a lot on the renewable energies. So there are some Irish companies in there and in the food sector as well. So I think those economic opportunities, tourism, definitely. And to promote education and cultural links. But very strong focus on cooperation and sharing good practices, for example, in agriculture, on topics that are priorities for Colombia, like innovation, entrepreneurship, or what we call orange economy, which is more on creative industries.
There's a lot of potential there for mutual benefit.
Yes, exactly.
And in Colombia itself, what are the sectors of the economy that are being prioritized? So what are your strengths in terms of the sectors that you want to push forward?
Yes, our strength is definitely one of the largest is the agro-food sector in particular, since we already have the free trade agreement, in particular products that are not, for example, produced here in Ireland, like, tropical fruits. And of course, in the agro sector is as well the Colombian flowers, the coffees. We try to work very strongly on coffee, like specialty coffees. Cacao is a new product that I mentioned because actually cacao is being produced even on those regions of the reintegration that is happening. So I think it's a strong push of course, in the agro sector. Apparel as well is very strong. I mean, we are really good producers on apparel.
I was surprised to find out recently that you have a very strong dairy sector in Colombia as well.
Yes. We do have a very, very strong, very solid. Actually, we export to some countries in Latin America. But for example, dairy, it's one of the areas that in terms of cooperation and sharing practices, we are working with Ireland. We have an MOU between, the scientific institutions like Chagas and the sister part.
Ireland has a lot of expertise.
Exactly. So this is, for example, one of the areas that we are trying to focus for, in particular for some of the regions. But definitely Colombia is strong in dairy. So, and the other part is in services, in particular with this, the IT, the software. In Colombia, we're working very strong based on talent and as well on incentive on software creation.
You mentioned the orange economy. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, orange economy. President Duque actually he published and he did a book focusing the creative. Actually, it's exactly more creative industries what we call here. So it's taking into account all the cultural diversity in Colombia is how to promote from all different from arts, but as well to bring the entrepreneurship, the innovation, the whole package. How to integrate that into a concrete measures that facilitate the creative industries, and that's why we've been talking here with Ireland, because Ireland actually has developed also very interesting models on creative and
this term orange economy, was that coined by a Colombian? Was he an academic or a businessman?
Yes, was actually President Duque. He was for quite a number of years. He works at the IDB. Inter-American Development Bank in Washington, and my understanding is that he worked actually with a scholar or something, and they did book. Very strong research, and most of the name of the orange economy, my understanding is coming from.
I reckon that orange is the color of creativity. Is that right?
Yes.
So the original term was economía naranja.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. But it's definitely how to, because we are already working very strongly on that. But definitely, and it has to be like to facilitate business, as I mentioned, and the tax, for example, incentives and. The whole package to facilitate that. To really, and Colombia is very innovative. For example, Medellin, I forgot to mention, is actually the fourth center of revolution for the 4.0 from the World Bank is now in Medellin. And last year we launched something that is called Si Emprende, which is an entrepreneurship. Like innovation similar to the one Emprende, something like similar to F Station in France. So
I think I read something about the mayor of Medellin and the innovations in green technology, public transport, and lots of advances there.
Yes, for example, in Medellin actually hosts the UNESCO event on learning cities. And actually, the mayor of Cork and the deputy mayor from Limerick and people from Dublin went there because it was a lot of focus on the learning cities, and Medellin has been a model. Before was Cork, actually, before that. And one of the areas that was part of the discussion was, innovative solutions, as you say, how to bring, those type of more eco-friendly transportation, but as well the impact in the public. Because Medellin, many definitely in Colombia, but for example, in the case of Medellin, it's really huge, the impact on not only the economic, but as well the social fabric transformation into neighborhoods with many of those solutions.
And that was very important for that city in particular.
Oh, yes.
It went through a very difficult period.
Yes.
In the 80s and 90s.
In the 80s Medellin passed to be the most dangerous city in the 80s. And 3 years ago was in a contestant by Wall Street Journal named the most innovative city in the world. So that's a huge transformation, yes.
And then looking at Colombia, so say for an Irish business person either thinking of exporting to Colombia or investing in Colombia, its major economic areas and population centres. We know Bogota, which is capital city, maybe 10 million people in the Andes, it's quite high up.
Sí.
What are the other major areas?
Yes, the other major, of course, Medellin is the second largest and is a very, let's say, industrialized economy there, and as well with a lot of talent. Barranquilla is a very excellent example as well. Barranquilla is our port city in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So most of the exports, all these, for example, services, I think I was mentioning, like some of the important pharmaceutical companies from Colombia, they are based in Barranquilla. They are very industrialized as well in terms of the port. Cali is the closest to the Pacific. So Cali is a city of, as well like Medellin, like around 1 point something, nearly 2 million inhabitants, a very strong economy. But also we have even cities of around 500,000 or 600,000, like in the, for example, coffee growing area, like Pereira, like also have a good connectivity. Okay. Now we are increasing, I think I mentioned, is the market in terms of the airplane, the people at the airports is like 23 million. So imagine, that's huge. And that says a lot in the way that business as well are moving and are facilitating.
There's a contrast, I guess, in that part of the world where in the past, Venezuela was the jewel in the crown and Colombia was a very troubled country.
Poorest,
and now it's switched around. So Colombia is developing very, very well, and Venezuela is in crisis. So how is the crisis in Venezuela, the social, economic, humanitarian crisis, impacting in Colombia?
Yeah, it's impacting us. Well, a lot. I mean, just imagine in 2 years, nearly 2 years, we have received 1.5 million Venezuelans. I mean, in the past, it's a feeling of, in the past, many Colombians went to Venezuela as well, as you mentioned, because it was basically for economic reasons. But that was not a process in 2 years. Imagine for us that we are strong, we are moving, we are implementing a peace agreement, but imagine having 1.5 million, in which, even though, of course, Venezuelans, many have good education, but many as well arrive to Colombia in a very bad situation. So it's all the, the resources, economic, to provide, for example, health, basic things, health, education, and labor conditions. So it's really huge. Now Venezuelans are in all the departments of Colombia. We don't have refugees. It's a migratory crisis. But the worst is that as the situation in Colombia, in Venezuela is still like worsening, there is really no democracy there.
No resolution yet.
If there is no solution, it will continue. So this 1.5 million may end up to be nearly 2 million in
So you have 1.5
million.
million. I think Venezuela has lost something like 5 million people in the last number of years.
Yes. In there, and going to...
And it really dwarfs what's happening in Europe with the migration crisis. Countries like Italy and Germany and some other Eastern European countries have reacted. And even in the United Kingdom with Brexit, part of the content of that was an anti-immigration reaction. Yet the scale of migration you've had from your neighbour is huge.
Yes, it's very huge. I think, of course, the advantage as well in a way is that we Colombians and Venezuela, we are very much alike.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that they are coming with a huge different, let's say, or background or cultural. But anyway, the reality as well. And we know that will be at the end a positive factor. But of course, it has to be successful. But our resources, it's really at limit. That's why from the foreign policy view, we have highlighted the importance to get a peaceful solution, but a solution in Venezuela. And as well the importance of international cooperation, like to awareness of that type of situation, because it's not normal that a country receives such a huge...
Yeah, in just a short space of time.
Yes, exactly. And but anyway, we are moving. This is definitely one of our challenges, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, this is one of our challenges. And as well, it's a long border but anyway, this is something new. Fortunately, we haven't seen really discrimination. But anyway, it's still. I mean, I think Colombian people. Some people have tried to to put any problem in Colombia is because of Venezuela. Sometimes you are listening now that, but I think from all governments, local government, from the top to the messages, we have to integrate them because we are not going to close the border. I mean, we have to have an open policy on that.
So that might constitute the greatest challenge maybe to Colombia in the coming years. In terms of opportunities, I know Colombia for some time has been a country that looks very much at free trade and being involved in the global economy. Where do you see the best or the greatest opportunities for Colombia economically?
Yes, I think in terms it's definitely, let's say, one of the big areas, of course, on the investment. We are working a lot on facilitating, the framework of a very solid. We've been always like kind of a solid economy, but facilitating the framework, for example, in terms of even in terms of energy. Let's put an example. I mean, climate change. I mean, in the Colombian renewable energy matrix is nearly clean. Is 80% is from hydro, so it's renewable. I mean, Colombia, if you see in the terms of emission, is 0.0 something on terms of emission. But even though that, we are really working a lot, and in particular, President Duque is working a lot on renewables, for example. Yeah. We open a bid on renewables because there are some areas in Colombia, like Guajira up in the north, where there's a huge opportunity, and as well, how in the border area there is as well. So this, for example, there is a strong focus on the renewable part. The other part is what we were talking before on the creative industries, and as well on the agrotech. I mean, we have a huge, the border opportunities, and in a way, as we are moving in the implementation of peace, and now we are more secure, there is a huge land, of course, respecting people's rights, indigenous rights, but there is a very huge opportunity on the agrotech sector that we are focusing on.
The future looks bright in many ways, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it looks bright. As I mentioned, we are very open in Colombia, open to talk about country. We know that we are facing challenges like everyone else, but we know that we are undoubtedly in the right direction. Yes,
definitely.
Yes.
As we get now into maybe the final straight in the interview, we'll maybe change gear a little, and I might just ask you a little bit about yourself. So what was your history and career before you became ambassador to Ireland for Colombia?
Yes, well, I am Foreign Service officer, career member of
career diplomat.
Career diplomat. Yes, I've been in the career in the Foreign Service in the last 26 years. I have served abroad twice in Washington, D.C., first in the consular section, then as a minister counselor in Washington, D.C. And I also have served actually 6 years in Venezuela, which was very interesting in terms of the dynamic, all possible topics were in that agenda. And internally, I've been working a lot on the Americas agenda. I used to be coordinator for the U.S. and Canadian affairs, as well as the Summit of the America process. Right before coming here, I was director for the Americas, which I was in charge of the following up of the relationship or the relations between Colombia and the 34 countries of the Western Hemisphere. So this is, in terms of my career. Before I was member of the Foreign Service, and actually my original career, let's say, I graduated from National University as nutritionist and dietitian, but I worked just like a couple of years in the area, and then the international field brought me more. And of course, I got a specialization on international relationships and all the part of the academia. Yeah.
And what kind of things do you like to do in your spare time when you're not fighting Colombia's corner?
Yeah. My spare time is definitely like I really like nature, like walking and jogging, and I think nature really inspires me. Yeah, that's something that like being outside.
And relaxes, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. This is I really like to be outside in terms of nature. This is something that I enjoy, and I enjoy pretty a lot here in Ireland. And of course, perhaps more than reading is definitely like movies. And I guess as Colombian as well, something that I love is dancing, for example. Yeah. This is something that I love. I really love. Yeah. I have to admit it. Yes.
I've heard good things about Colombia in that regard: music, dance, and having a good time.
Oh yes.
So as we're recording this, we're literally in the run-in to Christmas. So what's Christmas like in Colombia? What kind of things do you do, and what is original about a Colombian Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas is a big celebration in Colombia. We started, like, say, formally in something like on the night of 7th of December before the Catholic Immaculate Conception.
The Immaculate Conception, yeah.
Yes.
The 8th, I think, isn't it?
That's the 8th. So on the 7th, everyone in Colombia go outside the street. They put, like, light candles around the windows on the streets, and even fireworks, and there's a huge celebration. It's like the launching of formally Christmas season in Colombia. And then the 9 days before Christmas, we pray, not really mass, we do like in the houses or even in shopping malls.
The novenas, you do.
And novenas, like every day, mix of praying, carol singing and having fun. In some people, even some places, they ended up dancing as well. Yeah. So in a way, the last novena, of course, is the 24th. Mm-hmm. And we celebrate is the 24th, like the eve, not necessarily the 25th.
Yeah. And you have your main Christmas meal on the evening of the 24th.
Yes, we do. And Colombia, since it's so diverse, I cannot say that it's only like national dish, no. Yeah. But it's one particular one that is a very hearty soup that is named ajiaco. You go to next time. I hope you go soon. You try. It's made of potato and flavor of chicken, and it has like an indigenous roots. That is something. It's a particular herb that is called huasca, but as well from the Spanish.
Is it spicy?
No, it's not spicy. No, we are not spicy. No? We don't eat the
like
spicy
the
food. No, not at all. But also has like from the Spaniard, for example, the capers. Let's say. So it's really it's like getting together. But I think lately, as we are every time we got more tourism, more international. Lately, we do a lot of the turkey, but that's kind of, let's say, in the last 10 years. Before was more like kind of the soup.
Yeah. And who brings the presents?
El Niño Dios, originally. Now we are more Santa style, but definitely not the kings.
It's like, baby Jesus.
It's baby Jesus. And it's that we pray for baby Jesus. So we got to make sure that on the 24th, someone puts baby Jesus on the pesebre, on the nativity set. Yeah, but it's baby Jesus. Lately is Santa as well. But that's it. In January, on the kings? No, the kings.
Well, in Spanish they say Reyes Magos.
But in English, I don't know.
In English, the Magi, or the three wise men.
The three wise men.
Yeah,
no, we don't. No, in Colombia it's not the three wise men. It's definitely either baby Jesus or Santa. Okay. When my children were little, I used to ask them, please write a letter to Santa and to baby Jesus.
And it's on the night of the 24th that the presents.
Oh, yes. Okay. And the day after is everyone enjoying their gifts.
Sure. Yes. And then have you read anything lately that inspired you that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yes, well, more that recently, because I have to, actually, it's this kind of the second or perhaps the third time that I read, is that I guess since we are in the 200-year celebration of the Republic of Colombia, I've been reading with my daughter again the Garcia Marquez book of The General in His Labyrinth, which actually is a depiction of courses, not only on the fight of Bolivar, on the liberation, but as well, it says a lot on the Irish contribution to this movement, to this. Actually, Gabriel Garcia Marquez was inspired by the memoirs of Daniel O'Leary to do his book. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it was perhaps the last book that I read, and I really invite you to read it. It's very, very interesting, and it's not new, but it's a lot. And as I say, perhaps because we are in these 200 years and in Ireland, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's astonishing, really, the role that the Irish played in many Latin American countries and in their independence. And I think one of Bolivar's right-hand men was actually an Irishman as well.
Yes, it was Daniel O'Leary. Actually, he was born in Barrack Street in Cork.
Really?
Yes, and he was one of the 3,500 Irish that went to as some people say they were, they came from mercenaries, on idealists. But anyways, it's really impressive because at that time, of course, was not Ireland, was Britain, But it's very interesting, the number of Irish and of course, the legacy. It's so important. I think now we are recognizing more and more and more that.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
All right.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank
Again,
you, Patrick.
we've been beaten by the clock. That always happens here. So delighted to have spoken to you today about all of these subjects. Thank you very much again, Ambassador Cortés.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much, and happy Christmas.
Thank you very much. Happy Christmas to you.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you also to all our listeners. And remember that you can read my blog on www.albalogistics.com, and you can purchase my book, International Supply Chain Relationships, Creating Competitive Advantage in a Globalized Economy, which you will find on Amazon, Apple Books and Google Books. Thank you, and keep well until next time.